Target is our black cat, and Target moved up with us from Maryland when we came up here a little bit over a year ago. And he's been having some unpleasant issues. He's been throwing up. At first it was chunks of cat food that was undigested, and so we figured it was hairball, and we were trying to get this hairball medicine into him, and he wasn't real happy about that. They're supposed to just lick it off your fingers, not Target. So then we had to catch him, swipe it into his mouth, and shove it down the back of his throat. And after a while, he got wise to the fact that at the same time every morning, here, Target, Target, Target. He's not a stupid cat. So then we would have to run around the whole house. Well, lately it's been getting worse. He's been throwing up this greenish, bile-ish stuff. And if he does it on the hardwood floor, that's okay. But when he does it on the carpet, now we're getting into a little bit of issue there. And so, but we're dealing with it, and we're going to try to get him to the vet and get him all fixed up there. But I was looking the other day because our other cat is Duke. Marduk, to be precise. One wicked king from the Old Testament, but we like to give our pets and our kids weird names. And so I buy toys for Dookie every time I go out. I can't help it. It's like a grandparent, but I don't have grandkids around, so I buy toys for my cat. Little toys, and he jumps on the bed. He plays fetch. I throw him, and he chases them, and this starts at about 4:30, 5 o'clock every morning, which my wife really appreciates. So I can't find any toys. Where's all his toys? So I pull back the sofa here Tuesday or Wednesday. Oh, and lo and behold, is a huge patch of dried, I don't know how many months this has been there, but Target has left a present. So I looked at it, and I thought of it, kind of like Sam McGee and the cremation of Sam McGee. Somebody really needs to do something with that dried cat barf there. So I called my wife. It was over in New Brunswick, and I say, you need to know that the cat got sick underneath the couch, and it's probably been there for weeks. What do you want me to do? And she says, well, can you clean it up? Well, you're the one that usually cleans this stuff up, and you're so good at it. My wife has the gift of cleaning. So we hung up, and I put the couch back and began to work on my message this week, which is servanthood is the norm for every believer. One of the dangerous things about preaching is sometimes the messages hit you. So I'm sitting here coming up with all sorts of stuff to try to encourage you to serve, and like God is saying, isn't there something under the couch that needs your attention? So Thursday, my wife was coming home, and I couldn't stand it anymore, the thought of her coming home and having to pull that couch back and deal with that. So I got a spray bottle of Resolve and some paper towels, and I really needed was an electric grinder, and sprayed that thing and let it soak in, and then put boiling hot water on it and let it soak in, and went through about a half a roll of paper towels, and finally the thing's all cleaned up, and I did a good thing, didn't I? She comes home Thursday night, and the first thing I do is pull that couch back. Look, honey, there's no cat barf there. I did that. And isn't it true that in every family there's unpleasant chores, and someone's got to do it? What's the ugly job in your family? Or maybe the family you grew up in. How are they decided? I don't want to do that. It's not my job. I did it last time. It's his turn. Do you get a rotating schedule? Do you just do whatever mom and dad say to do? Do you flip a coin? Or like in my case, does the youngest just get the worst jobs because he just happened to be in the wrong place in the birth order, and it'll make him do it? Make Jimmy do it. What are some of the ugly jobs that exist in your family? Laundry? folding the laundry, carrying the laundry, walking the dog. I grew up on Long Island. We had a stupid little beagle named Twinkle Toes. And we didn't have a big yard, and so we had to walk this stupid thing a couple times a day, and I hated doing that. I don't know why, just because I'm selfish and lazy by nature. But Mom would say, walk the dog, and I'd put the thing on it, and I'd take the dog up the street and drag it the whole way, because it wants to sniff at everything. And all I want to do is get it up to the corner, because Mom said, take the dog up to the corner and bring it back. So I'm dragging the dog all the way up, leaving skin and fur and the sidewalk, and the poor thing, whether it did its business or not, I didn't care. I just got up to the corner, I got the thing. It was horrible. I hated walking the dog. That was a chore in my family. Now, I have repented of that, and I can't tell you. Art talked about guilt and being forgiven for your words. I have spent a lot of angst over what I did to Twinkle Toes, and I happen to believe that pets will be in heaven. You can disagree with me if you want, but they never rebelled against God. We did, so I think they're probably going to be there. And one of the things I dread about heaven is having to look Twinkle Toes in the eye. And the first thing I'm going to say is, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Want to go for a walk? Your family, maybe it was taking out the garbage or taking out the recycling. Who's going to do that? Or if you have a cat, who's going to clean the litter box? That's a fun job. We had an electric automatic box once. That was pretty cool. Cat went in there, and the sensor would go, and about 4 minutes later, little automatic rake would come out, shove it down in a box at the end. It worked about half the time. And then someone had to go down there and clean that up and get it working again. Who makes the beds? Who does the dishes? Who dries the dishes? Who puts the dishes away? Who vacuums? Who cuts the grass? Who shovels the snow? Every healthy family has got to, am I right? Every family has got to figure that stuff out, whether you're healthy or not. Healthy families have figured it out. Who does these things? What I want to get you to see the church as this morning is have you ever seen the church as just one big family, and there's lots of opportunities to serve, both in areas that are desirable and maybe even glamorous, and in areas that are less desirable and less glamorous. Those are the chores that every church has to have done, just like in a family, to keep it running at just a basic level. Someone's got to flip the switch on the stuff that goes down the sink and chews it up. Otherwise, the whole place begins to stink after a while. I forget that sometimes. My wife comes home and goes, I don't think lighting a candle is going to cover that smell. You forgot to run the incinerator, didn't you? Chores that needs to be done. Now, ideally, every member of a church, every follower of Jesus would work in an area that is fruitful and satisfying and just causes you to go, oh, Lord, I'm so glad I had the opportunity to do this and serve in this way. But someone's got to take out the trash. Someone's got to walk the dog. Someone's got to clean the litter box. There's no automatic chore doer. I wish we had one of these in the church, I wish rooms just cleaned themselves up by themselves. I wish food just got put out and taken away by themselves. I wish snow just got removed by itself. I wish the lawn got cut by itself. And all the things that, I wish the kids go downstairs and the automatic teacher just kind of drops down and teaches the kids. And the rowdy ones who won't listen and pull hair and disobey and just make you want to smack them, but you can't because we're church. I just wish we had an automatic teacher that could just know how to handle all those, don't you? It's not how it works, though, is it? It doesn't work that way in church. It certainly doesn't work that way in your home. Most of us are aware of the basic New Testament's teaching on servanthood. I'm going to share some scriptures, but I'm not going to camp there with you. John chapter 13, Jesus washed the feet of his disciples, and then he said, do as I have done. Perfect example. Beautiful example. Matthew chapter 20, James and John's mother has asked Jesus, can my boys sit like on the right and the left hand when your kingdom comes? Can they be the vice president and the secretary of state and the speaker of the house and the member, the leader of parliament, the prime minister? And Jesus says, you don't know what you're asking. He said, the Son of Man came to serve and to give his life. Leadership isn't being adulated by the crowds, leadership is painful and sacrificial. Do you think they can pay that price? He asked her. Matthew chapter 23, he said, the greatest among you will be your servant. He was talking to all the religious leaders that liked their fancy titles and liked their fancy clothes and wanted to be acknowledged by the religious people that they were indeed leaders. And Jesus says, no, that's not how leadership looks. We're all familiar with Philippians chapter 2, the great hymn that Paul wrote there about although he was God, Jesus took the very form of a servant, and he went to the cross. We just celebrated all that at our communion service. That's what leadership looks like. Jesus took the form of a servant. We're familiar with 1 Corinthians 12 and Romans 12, where Paul says that the church is a body, and it's got all these different parts, and God has put them all just as he wanted in the body, and it takes every part, and some of us are tongues, and some of you are brains, and others of you are hands, and some of you are feet, and all the different body parts are represented and needed there. And if one part of the body doesn't work, the whole body suffers. And 1 Peter 4, you're familiar with that, where the apostle says, use your gifts to serve others. And if you speak, let it be with the words of Christ, but let God's grace flow through you. That's what it means to be a follower of Jesus. We're going to have an invitation at the end this morning, and it's going to be not just so that you get forgiven, not just so you get a clean conscience, but so that God created you for a purpose, and the purpose God created you, whether you accept him or not, is so that his Holy Spirit can fill you and that his grace can flow through you. So if you need to make a decision for Christ, be aware that one of the things God wants to do is work through you and touch other people with his grace. You're a conduit now. You're electrified. You're connected. And God wants to use you. Great teachings on servanthood. So why don't some people serve? I found an article this week by Ed Stetzer. He wrote it 2 years ago in Outreach magazine. He had 3 reasons. I came up with a few more. He said, number 1, he says, they feel useless. They don't realize or think that they have anything to contribute. They, for whatever reason, and there are people like that. I'm a worm. I'm nothing. And they really believe that. And so they sit there and they go, I have nothing to offer. I have nothing to bring to this church, to God. They've never been taught, maybe, about spiritual gifts. They've never been taught about servanthood. So that's legitimate. He says another reason is they're hurting. I think this is really real. They've served before in churches, and for whatever reason it went south, and maybe they bumped into some territorial. Do you realize that churches do have territorial issues? Can't touch that one. That's the third rail. You'll die if you try to make a change there, because this person has controlled that for 500 years, and they ain't letting it go. And so they're hurting, they got burned, or they got discouraged, or maybe they got lonely, because sometimes you do stuff in church and it's like no one cares and no one notices, and you just get tired of it, or maybe unappreciated, which I'm going to touch on at the end as well. They've been burned before. Maybe he says, and I don't like this, but I guess there's some, Ed says maybe they're lazy. Churches have been known to have people who are just consumers. They come and they take, and they really don't give a whole lot back. The Pareto principle says 80% of the work is done by 20% of the people, and that's common among organizations. I'm sure in your workplace you can think of, someone's carrying the load here, and why are we paying these other people to be here? Same happens in churches. 80% of the people aren't doing their share, and so 20% are getting hammered. This is contagious. They're not doing anything. Why do I have to do anything? And we start to keep score, and then we start to get bitter, and then next thing you know, no one's cleaning the litter box. And it's frustrating for the 20% who are doing something, because they're crushed by carrying the burden for everybody else, because these people have really big hearts. They love to serve. And we take advantage of them, and we burn them right out of the church sometimes. I had a few more that I wanted to add to Ed's list. I came up with the number 4. I thought they're tired. Some people are just tired. I've done my time. Don't make me do that again. Okay, I get that. Number 5, maybe they've just never been asked. Communication can really stink sometimes at a church, even a small church like ours. Have you noticed that? It's like, how can we not know what's going on? But it happens. We make assumptions about what people ought to do or what they ought to know. And so they've just never been asked. Churches are notorious for assuming that people know what the needs are, but we don't make them known, or we don't go to people directly. Announcements don't generate volunteers, but going to someone eyeball to eyeball and explaining, here's the need and here's why I think you might be able to help. And listen, we'll do it for a trial period. I guarantee you, if you don't like it, you're not going to be stuck there for the rest of your life. Andy Stanley, the systems video that we didn't watch yesterday because Robbie called and said there was too much snow, you better not come on down. I'm like, man, I got an all-wheel drive Nissan Rogue. I can make this thing. I got all-season tires. He says, no, snow's going to be too bad, brother. Just stay home. We'll do it next week. I'm pretty sure that's the way the conversation went. If it's not, you can ask Robbie. I personally thought he'd have a little more gumption than that and would have tried to make it here, but I follow his lead.
I was even going to walk.
You were, yeah, well, I was prepared to walk as well. Andy Stanley is going to ask the question, is there a system? If you're not getting the behavior that you want to see out of your people, it's because your system isn't bringing that behavior, not encouraging, not motivating. So I think if people have never been asked, it's a system. Do we have a system to steer people into serving? And so we're going to work on that. I think an example here is our children's ministry. I've had some conversations with Claudia and Guy, and they've expressed, not in so many words, but like we're burning out. It's like we're doing everything in children's ministry. We're writing the curriculum, we're down there, and they're getting minimal help from anybody else. And what I'm hearing is they're running a great big flag up saying, would someone please help? They feel like they're all alone. And I'm thinking, well, there's a couple ways I can take this. One is people here don't really give a rat's patootie about children's ministry because they don't have kids, and they don't even think about the people that might come or guests that have kids. So they're just, they're just cold-hearted towards it. I'm thinking, that's not the people I've met. The people I've met in this church are very big-hearted. So I'm thinking, they probably just don't know. They probably just don't know that there's a crying need there. And if they knew, then it would be taken care of. Here's another reason people don't serve: overcommitment in other areas. And I get this. Some of you commute all week. My wife is gone all week. It's tough for her. Someone was telling me this morning, her husband comes home on the weekend. It's the only time she has to see him. Overcommitment in other areas. Your job or your kids have all sorts of activities. You may have a special needs situation with your kids or with a parent. Some of you are stuck in the sandwich generation. You got kids to raise. You got parents who are getting in bad shape. I understand all that. And there's other commitments. Legitimate reasons. And then number 7, I thought of this morning, I kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, but I think it's worth its own. Underappreciated. Some people just feel devalued, like they can't see the connection between how they serve and the overall mission of the church. And so after a while, they're like, why am I bothering? Why am I giving my time and my energy to this? No one says thank you. No one acknowledges me. And it's all right to want to be thanked. As a matter of fact, the healthy churches that are really excelling in this area, they put it in their budget and they have huge events where they get all their volunteers and they say, thank you. Without what you're doing, we could not be reaching the community, which is the whole purpose of the church in the first place. And so can we do a better job letting you know you're appreciated? And what you do makes a difference to what the church does. We couldn't do it without you. But just like home, how many times do I say to my wife, thanks for doing the dishes tonight? I'm trying to work on that. She says I'm getting better. She comes home and I often say, the house just smells better when you're home. Because she likes candles and she likes bleach and Fabuloso and all that. And it does. It just smells fantastic. Isn't it nice to hear a thank you now and then? Or is that just me or her? We're all called to serve. The question is, where are you serving and among whom are you serving? That's the key. So So what do you do? Where are you serving in God's church? If you can't answer that, then you're missing out on God's best for you. If you can't say, this is where I'm giving back to my local church, and I think the local church is important. It is the way that God reaches local communities, is through the community of faith. Where are you giving back? Now, if you can't answer that, I'm not going to beat you up and say, you mean, rotten, nasty, lazy person. No. I'm just going to say, if you don't have a specific area that you can say, this is where I'm giving back, you're missing. There's so much more, because serving is fantastic. It really is. And those of you that serve regularly and have it in the right perspective, you know that. That's why so many of you are saying amen right now. If you're listening online, there was quite a few amens right there. Some of you know exactly how you're giving back. I'm going to run through, and I've been told this is dangerous. You don't want to acknowledge anybody in church, because if you leave someone out there and get mad and go up the myth tree, well, if they go up the myth tree, they have a heart problem. But I haven't been here long, so cut me some slack. I don't know everybody. I don't know everything that goes on. But just from the little bit of time I've been here, I've observed and I've asked around a little bit. Some of you know exactly how you're giving back. Velda runs a kids, I was surprised to hear, I didn't even know about that, runs a kids club every Friday, except for the next couple of weeks when school is canceled all the time. But, a couple hours she's here and she picks them up and she's excited, and that's fantastic. Natasha, can't even begin to talk about all the stuff you're way over. You need to dial back a little bit, but just such a giving heart in the community and compassion in the church. If there's a need, she just is motivated to go and do something about that. Our worship people. We had a great worship meeting here a week or two ago, and the commitment it takes to show up and practice and then perform, and now we're talking about maybe a pre-concert on Sunday mornings. That's more practice, that's more commitment, and we want more people involved, but they do a fantastic, they are serving to give you a good worship experience. Man. I'm trying, guys. I'm trying to give you some kudos there. The guys in the sound booth, pretty much easy. The only time we know they're there is when what? Something goes wrong and then all the heads slip around. It's like, I get that. But, man, they're in here several days a week just testing and running wires and fixing things and trying to get the computer speeded up and do whatever it takes. Huge. I already talked about Guy and Claudia, passionate for children's ministry downstairs, passionate to reach the community with special events. Shelley Ferguson, also for years working with the kids, selflessly pouring herself into them and their situations. Our leaders here have devoted countless hours to raising up new leaders and to having meetings and to having discussions of praying for the direction of the church. And that's not always easy, because there's always somebody that's not going to like the direction that they go, and then they got to take all the bullets for that and try to put out all the fires. They've done a tremendous job here. That's servanthood. Jim and Marion, beautifying the outside of the church and doing a fantastic job with it. Tremendous. Art and Neil, I've heard about your reputations for helping people, for working in houses. If there's a need, you want to talk to these guys because they're just good with home repairs and practical stuff like that. Some of you regularly visit with members who can't get out anymore, and you phone and you visit and you send cards. That's what I'm talking about. And I'm sure there's many others that I'm just not even aware of. And some of these things that you do are highly enjoyable, and maybe even they're high visibility, but other things that you do are more like chores. And I get that. So I come in every Sunday morning and there's food out there. Where'd that come from? That's that automatic chore machine, isn't it? You watch, you get here early enough, you'll see those refreshments just come right down out of the ceiling. No. There's some dedicated people that take it upon themselves because they want members to come in and they want guests to come in and feel welcome. And so they have food and they have refreshments, and then it magically just puts itself away when everything's done. Like, no, it doesn't. I'm sure there are Sundays some of you people have come in here and thought, I really don't want to do this. But you do it because you're committed and you know deep down it needs to be done. The litter box has got to be empty. Nothing glamorous, but boy, it's got to get done. or soon it's going to be obvious. I'm hoping that soon there'll be more opportunities to serve here. I think we're going to be building a connection desk right out in the foyer there. A place where members and guests alike can come and connect with what the church is all about, where you can connect and see are there places you can serve. They can pick up bags as gifts we're going to give them and learn about everything that's going on here. But guess what? It's going to need people to staff that. And people, you don't want to put grumpy people there. It's okay to be grumpy, just don't serve in the hospitality ministry. Be a grump where you're not going to affect anybody, okay? But people walk in the door and we want them to see a smiley face. And some of you older people, this is a tremendous place. And Natasha had a great story a couple of weeks ago talking about she entered this church somewhere and someone said, well, you're new here, would you like a tour? And bam, they passed her on to someone else and away they went and she had a wonderful time. She felt like she was valued and welcomed. That's what we want to do here. There's a place to serve there. If you can't identify where you serve, keep that in mind. We're going to need people I love this idea we have a guest come in, we get their information. What if on Monday or Tuesday they got a visit from the church and some homemade bread or homemade cookies or whatever your specialty is? We're going to need some volunteers, some servants. This could be a place for you to do it. And you don't have to go in the house. We're not asking for a visit. We're not asking for a Bible study. We're not asking you to try to convert them. We're just asking you to, hey, I'm Mary. Thank you for coming to church. It was a blast having you here. I hope you enjoy these cookies, and see you later. That's it. Oh, no, come on in, Mary. No, if you don't want to go in, don't go in. Now, if you choose to go in, then you're on your time. Does that sound like something you could do? The worship people met last week, and a tremendous idea came out of that meeting of maybe having a midweek praise service, basically for the young people, but guess what? Not just for the young people. We need older peeps. I'll let you figure out what older is. I'm not quite there yet. Shane is, but I'm not. If we do that, please don't think, well, that's just a young people's meeting. I'm not welcome there, or if I'm going to feel weird. No, I really think the church is too segregated age-wise, and I think young people need to be hanging out with older people because they have an energy that you need to draw from, and you have wisdom that they need to learn from. I love the idea. Stephen was telling me they did something like that at Central a couple of years ago when he was down at Central Christian Church in Charlottetown, and he said there was an older gal that came to the evening youth service, and he got talking to her, and she goes, I don't really like the music they do here. She goes, but I want to support them, and so I'm hanging out anyway. I'm like, yes, she gets it. I spoke last week about you don't have to like it. We need to get out of our comfort zone. So that's what we're talking about. It's a great attitude. Oh my gosh, the list goes on. Knitters and sewers, and maybe you do that here and I'm not aware of it, but we're going to Haiti. I know churches, they have people that love to sew and they make dresses all year long, and there's groups that come down to Haiti and they have hockey bags filled with hundreds of dresses, and they need them down there because we have trailers and we give away clothes all the time, and most of the time those trailers are almost empty, and it's so painful to bring a young Haitian into there, and there's nothing on the racks for them. And so and even in your own community, those of you that love to knit, there's a ministry there to make hats and scarves and mittens. If we get Celebrate Recovery going here, we're going to need some of you who have overcome major hurts and addictions to help lead that. Do you have a heart for people that hurt? You need to talk to me because I want to get Jeff Clark up here and see if we can do something in that area. There's a tremendous serving opportunity, and there'll be more as we go along. The bottom line is it doesn't matter where, it doesn't matter what, it doesn't matter when. Every believer in God's family needs to be able to point to some specific area of service and say, that's where I'm giving back to God. That's where I'm making a difference. I don't care what it is. But I know that if you don't have that area, you're missing out on something that God says is very, very important. Some of you might need to dial back your area of service a little bit because you're going to get burned out. You're so big-hearted. Your life is getting out of balance, and it's in danger of becoming unhealthy. And as leaders, we need to keep an eye out on that as well, because that's not a good thing. But more than likely, many others of you need to step up and say, here I am. What is there for me to do? That's a tremendous attitude. Healthy churches are characterized by people with that attitude. Where can I jump in? Doesn't matter where it is or what it is. It may not be particularly glamorous. It may not be something you ever thought you'd do. It may be completely outside your comfort zone, but that's the point, isn't it? We live by faith. And faith, by definition, means risk. If there's no risk in my life, then there's no faith. And so risk means getting outside your comfort zone. And we could do a whole other sermon on this, and I won't. But just think of Abraham, called to go from a place that he knew to a place that he'd never heard of and had no idea where it was. That took faith. Moses going to lead the Israelites into the promised land. He'd never been there. Didn't know how to get there. Didn't know how he was going to deal with all the obstacles along the way. On and on and on. Comfort zone. It's like building a house in Haiti. If you go to Haiti, at first it's a bit overwhelming, especially if you're not really into construction, and I guarantee you, you're not used to their construction. But no matter who you are and no matter what your background is, you soon find a place to contribute. Maybe it's carrying a bucket of cement, or maybe it's slapping some mud, or maybe it's twisting some wire, or maybe it's carrying some block. And maybe it's even just encouraging the others as they're doing the work, and your body's a little too broken to really do the hard work. You can still encourage. You can start a song. You can tell jokes. You can tell stories. You can listen to stories. You can engage with the locals. Some of them speak English. You can engage with the kids. That's what I love about leading short-term mission trips. Everyday people, just like all of you, who often feel like they haven't got a whole lot to offer, discover in yielding themselves to doing whatever is needed, that more important than what you do is that you're doing something. The gal sitting right here, slapping mud, is a high-powered international corporate business consultant who has earned a lot of money, and yet she's in Haiti slapping mud on a 12 by 24 house and having the time of her life. And when she heard that we were going back next week, she's building a house, and one of the things we're going to be doing when we're down there is she sponsored a kid, and she's going to be building and working, slapping mud on that kid's house. The idea that you're part of something bigger and you're making a contribution that makes a difference in the world. I love that. You're part of a team, and God is using you to change one little corner of the world. One of my happiest moments, it was just last year. We were down there in May, and we had too many people in the house, so I really had nothing to do. And I noticed that there was this one little Haitian kid. He wasn't wearing any clothes. He's about 4 years old. And he motioned me over, and he had a little plastic Coke bottle. And what they do is they take the Coke lids, the caps, and they run them through a nail. And they make little trucks because they don't have a Walmart real handy. And he wanted me to tie a string. And I tied a string, and it's about 5 feet long. And the kid went running away, naked, barefoot, through the dirt and debris, pushing this. You would have thought I had bought him a radio-controlled $100 toy from Walmart. I didn't get a picture of that. I couldn't. It killed me. I was crushed. Look what I'd have missed if I hadn't said yes to God about going, about serving. Some of you are retired. I want to talk to you because I'll be retired one day, maybe. I don't plan on it, but it could happen. You spent your whole life honing and practicing some skill, some gift, some hobby. Do you think God intended you just to lay it down now that you've hit a certain age? Stephen was telling me about his girlfriend Larissa up in Surrey, and when she was in grade 12, her youth leader put her into a mentoring relationship with an older woman in the church, and they met every 2 weeks, and they would read through a book together and answer questions and study about it. And then she went off to college, and so she had questions about college, and then she is looking at other decisions to make in her life. And after 5 years, she still has a relationship with this woman who had a lot to offer because of her life experience and because of her maturity and because of her age, and she's still speaking wisdom into her life after 5 years. You know somebody that needs to know something that you know. You know something that someone else needs to know. You can do something that someone else needs done. You can teach something that somebody else needs to learn. You want to make Stephen's year? You come up to him after church and you say, hey, can you hook me up with a kid that needs some help? I'd love to do something like that. And then we'll pray and we'll talk and we'll try to get you connected with someone that would be a good fit. Wouldn't that be fantastic? Those of you who are serving, I want to encourage you, keep it up. Don't give up, don't quit. Encourage others to serve too. Don't hesitate to ask for help. Don't hesitate to share what serving has meant to you, the satisfaction, the joy, the delight in knowing you're doing something positive and tangible for God. I asked this week, I put out on Facebook, I like to do that. This question, if you volunteer somewhere in your life, why do you do it? What benefit does it bring to you? Why would you recommend it to someone else? And I got so many fantastic, I just want to share a couple of them. Someone said, I volunteer at church for almost anything. She goes, I do it partly because my parents taught me to be really in a community. You need to be a part of it and help it grow. I also do it for how it blesses other people. Plus it's fun. I get to connect with people. Someone else said, because it's the right thing to do and it feels good to be able to help others, and everyone is blessed in one way or another, even when you don't think you are, and everyone has some form of gift available to them that can be used to help brighten another person's day or help a cause. It would be a waste not to use it, not to mention there are many more gifts in giving and helping than there are in receiving. Jesus said that somewhere. I think Paul tells us in Acts chapter 20. It's more blessed to give than to receive. Someone else said, volunteerism is the ultimate exercise in democracy. This was actually a little sign. You vote in elections once a year, but when you volunteer, you vote every day about the kind of community you want to live in. That's true of the church as well. When you serve in the church, you're voting for what kind of church this is going to be. Someone else said, it makes my heart swell with inner joy. One gal who has suffered from rheumatoid arthritis, and she knows what pain is. She's had multiple surgeries, takes tons of pills. Every year, she builds houses with Habitat for Humanity. She said, most simply put, I feel God's pleasure when I hammer. My Habitat team gives me a glimpse of heaven and its diversity of age, ethnicity, and economic status. Over and over. It gets you out of your world. It touches the lives of others. People who serve have a very high sense of, I make a difference, I'm doing something that really matters. And when you do it in the name of Jesus and for his glory, it gets really, really rich. Do you have that in your life? If you do, God bless you. Keep doing it. Let others know about it. Jesus said, let your light shine. Don't put your light under a basket. People say, well, I don't want anyone to know that I do this because it's self-serving. No, we need to know what you're doing and be inspired and be encouraged by it and to be challenged by it. Kim and I had dinner a couple nights ago with another couple who have shared with us their dream of how they could serve God with their gifts and their lives over the next 10 years. Talk about a fun time. They have served with us in Haiti on several different times, and now they're looking at going to Uganda so that they can train medical missionaries to go into South Sudan and take the gospel through their medical work. South Sudan, very dangerous place for Christians right now. They could just as easily be planning a comfortable retirement in Florida, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I have to ask, is that all there is? But the words of Jesus have gripped their heart and soul. Do as I have done. The Son of Man came to serve and to offer up his life. The greatest among you will be your servant. Would you dream with me? What would happen in this church? What would happen in this community if servanthood was the norm for every one of us? And you don't have to go to Haiti. You don't have to go to Uganda. You don't have to go to Romania. It may be next door. It may be down the street. It may be downstairs. But for God's sake, do something. Go somewhere. Have some story to tell Jesus. Because one day he's going to say, so what did you do? How did you contribute to my family back there on earth? You only got one kick at the can. Would you make a decision now? If you haven't already, I'm going to make a difference. Your prayer might be as simple as, God, I don't know how. I feel pretty worthless. I don't know what. Just decide. Just say, God, show me where I can contribute back to your kingdom and make a difference. And you will never regret that. And the church will just be a blast. And the community will see it and feel it and know it. And they'll come looking for what's going on. It'll change your life. Let's sing.